Hello everyone. Okay, seeing as how the 6th season of MLP is coming up March 26th, and since I haven't really done anything animation related in quite a while, I decided to do something for this whole thing, I guess. So, which is why I will be reviewing my least favorite episode from each season of MLP, starting with this current review of Feeling Pinkie, and ending with a re-review of Thanks for the Memories, mainly because I'm doing that episode again because I thought my original review was complete shit, so I'll get to the episode when it comes. But for now, let's get to the review of Feeling Pinkie. Also, if you want to read along to what my script of whatnot, I will leave a link in the description below where you can read the text version if my talking gets a little cloudy with what I want to say or something. I'll leave a link in the description to my scripts for each of these reviews. So let's get started. Now, before anyone asks, no, my big issue with the episode doesn't really have much to do with the religious overtone or stuff in the episode. I mean, yeah, it's stuff around it is kind of a problem, but not the big issue I really have with the episode. And I'll get to that later. But for now, the whole focus of this episode seems to be on Twilight trying to figure out Pinkie Pie's Pinkie sense and how it works and whatnot. And hilarious antics ensue! Not really. I'm just gonna get this out of the way. The execution for the moral of this episode is just terrible. God awful. I mean, it's hard to... Pretty much there's just no explanation or basis of anything for this whole Pinkie sense of... or anything. And that doesn't really work well with me. And no, it's Pinkie Pie, don't question it argument doesn't really work for me in this episode. For me, the argument of it's Pinkie Pie, don't question it, really only works for a couple short moments every now and again in episodes. Not the whole fucking episode. I just don't like that argument. I don't think it applies to this episode. I just really hate it when shows or anybody says, pretty much goes, hey, you should believe in this, even though there's no evidence or explanation for it. That's pretty much what the episode is trying to teach us. Hey, this may not be able to see, but believe in it. I really don't like it when people do that. This is like religious preachers trying to force you into believing their religion. Or that American Dad episode where Stan tried to convert one of his friends to his religion despite his friend's beliefs. It just... Also kind of why I'm not really much of a religious person myself. I'm not an atheist, but I'm kind of in the middle between religious and atheism, somewhere in the middle. And just overall, the execution for all of this is just pretty bad. Okay, so what about the rest of the episode? Well, the logic in this is garbage. There are quite a few times in this episode where it pretty much abandons any logic whatsoever. Even cartoon logic standards, it doesn't really work at all. So just so the plot can work. An example of this would be like the climax when they're with the whole chasing with that Hydra monster thing. I mean, remember when Twilight pretty much had to jump from a stone pillar to the other side? When she can easily, I don't know, teleport! This part, and quite a few others, just made me facepalm myself every time something like that came up because of the logic. Just terrible. I can't really believe any of that shit that goes on. Or about that, like that scene where Twilight falls through a trapdoor, which originally wasn't even there to begin with. Only to get hurt even more. Okay, now, speaking of that, let's lead to my biggest issue with this whole episode, and why I put it on my most overrated episodes list, the humor. Now, a lot of people can kind of ignore some of the problems in this episode due to them thinking that it's really funny. Well, it should be obvious that I don't think it's really funny at all. I think it's horribly unfunny. This mainly just goes that most of the presence in the episode deals with its comedy. and it ends up becoming my biggest problem because it's pretty much just a Twilight torture porn. I mean, most of the humor in this episode is just slapstick that lives off of all the pain and suffering that Twilight goes through. Now, I know that's kind of the main point in slapstick, but it really doesn't work when the person doing it is kind of innocent in all of this. The person needs to be doing something to deserve or warrant the pain coming to them. All Twilight's trying to do is figure out how this Pinkie sense works. And apparently she's in the wrong? What the fuck? I mean, of course she's gonna be skeptical with what's going on. Anyone in their right mind would. Why would you assume? I don't know. I just don't know. Because of this and quite a bit more, I ended up finding 90% of like the humor in this episode to be really cringeworthy. And also the jokes get pretty old fast because they all have the same outcome. Twilight getting hurt. At first it gets really cringeworthy, but then it's still in that area, but then it just gets old and boring. And I just get tired of seeing the same thing happen over and over, and pretty much just Twilight torture porn. I don't really like when shows do this, and this is no exception. Well, that's all I really have to say on this episode. Pretty much just terrible comedy and this no sense of logic, and just a poorly executed moral all add up to my least favorite episode of Season 1 of MLP. So, okay, what do you think about this episode? Do you like it, hate it, whatnot? And feel free to guess which episode I'll be doing for Season 2. So, like, comment, subscribe, Squid of Baconator, signing you out.